Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're diving into a really fascinating shift in how modern products are actually built and improved. We're going to completely reframe the modern product manager, not just as a builder, but as a data detective. Because let's be real, in today's tech landscape, great products aren't built on random guesses. They're built by solving some pretty complex user mysteries. So let's dive right into this. Now, this right here is the classic product dilemma. Imagine you've built something amazing. You launch a huge marketing campaign and boom, 100 users sign up today. But when you check the numbers next week or maybe next month, only 10 of them have actually stuck around. So what happened to the other 90? Why did they leave? At what exact second did they just give up? This is the central mystery of user drop-off, often called churn. And honestly, reducing it is absolutely crucial. It's one of the most vital responsibilities a product manager has. What's really interesting here is the stark contrast between the old way of doing things and the new way. In the past, teams might have tackled that 90 user drop-off by relying on gut feelings, assumptions, or honestly, whatever the loudest stakeholder wanted to build next. But modern product management, it's deeply, deeply connected to data. Instead of guessing blindly, which kind of just allows problems to stay hidden and decisions to get super emotional, the modern approach uses product analytics to uncover the actual truth. Analytics helps teams measure exactly how users interact, which features literally create value, and where people are getting stuck. Section 1. The Analytics Mystery Solving User Drop-Off. To really understand this, let's look at a product manager at Spotify, trying to figure out why users are completely abandoning the app right before playing their very first song. I mean, they aren't even getting to the music. Section 2. The Analytics Cycle. 6 Steps to Success. Let's see how detectives use this continuous loop to turn raw data into decisions you can actually act on. All right, here is the 6-step analytics cycle. Let's walk through these steps and apply them directly to our Spotify onboarding mystery. First up, you define goals. The goal here is simple: increase the activation rate. For Spotify, that might just mean getting a user to successfully hit play on their first song. Second, you track behavior. You implement event tracking to see literally every button click, search, and screen view during that whole onboarding flow. Third, analyze patterns. You look at the data to see exactly which screen is causing the most people to exit. Fourth, generate insights. You form a hypothesis about why that specific screen is causing so much trouble. Fifth, make decisions. You redesign that confusing step. And finally, step 6, measure outcomes. You check to see if your fix actually worked. And then, well, the whole cycle just repeats continuously. Section 3. True North, aligning on value. Because, as any good detective knows, you need focus so you don't just completely drown in data. And that focus requires a North Star metric. Think of this as the absolute core value that users get out of your product. For Spotify, it isn't simply app downloads. No, it's listening hours. For Airbnb, it's successful bookings. Facebook, meaningful engagement. By tracking a true North Star metric, you align your entire product team around actually creating value, instead of just chasing random, meaningless numbers. If a tweak to the onboarding flow doesn't eventually lead to more listening hours, well, it simply wasn't a successful change. Now, another incredibly powerful tool in our detectives toolkit is cohort analysis. A cohort is really just a group of users who share a common characteristic or timing. Instead of looking at this massive, messy pile of all your users at once, you group them up. This helps you isolate exactly when a problem happens or when a fix actually succeeds. Let's look at how this brilliantly plays out in practice. Say you roll out your shiny, redesigned Spotify onboarding flow in February. You'd create a cohort of users who joined in January, that's your baseline group, and compare them directly to the cohort of users who joined in February. By March, you measure the retention differences between those two groups. If that February cohort has a significantly higher percentage of users sticking around to jam out to music, boom, you have hard evidence that your product improvement worked. Section 4. What versus why? Qualitative plus quant. Because, as it turns out, quantitative numbers only tell half the story. I absolutely love this quote from the source material. Analytics explains what users do. User research explains why users behave that way. Data alone just isn't enough. The absolute best product managers balance their cold, hard quantitative data with qualitative human empathy. Numbers can show you that a problem exists, for sure, but you usually have to go talk to real, live human beings to understand the actual context behind the problem. Think about it like this. Funnel analysis, which tracks a user's progression from the landing page to account creation all the way to onboarding, might flag that 40% of users are dropping off at step 3. Okay, but why? Is the app crashing? Is the text totally confusing? Are you asking for way too much personal info? User interviews and customer feedback are what reveal the actual friction point. Balancing the quant data with the user's qualitative context is the magic that allows the team to accurately redesign the flow. Section 5, Common Data Traps, Avoiding False Clues. Because every good detective knows there are plenty of dead ends out there. Probably the most dangerous trap is the vanity metric. Vanity metrics are those numbers that look incredibly impressive on a dashboard or in a press release. Think millions of app downloads or huge social media follower counts. But honestly, they provide very little actual insight into the health of your product. Meaningful metrics, on the flip side, are things like retention, conversion rates, and revenue per user. Those reveal the actual value of your product. Because growth without retention is just incredibly fragile. Just look at this breakdown. A team might be popping champagne because their total app downloads are completely off the charts. But if the actively retained users are barely a blip on the radar, the product is fundamentally failing. A smart product manager sidesteps this vanity trap entirely and focuses relentlessly on the meaningful metrics that prove long-term value. There are a few other traps to watch out for too. Tracking way too many metrics just creates noise, and suddenly you've lost sight of your North Star. Ignoring user context, that just makes your data completely misleading. Then there's measuring outputs instead of outcomes. That's the trap where teams throw a party for simply launching a feature rather than measuring if that feature actually solved a user's problem. And finally, confusing correlation with causation. Look, just because users who utilize advanced features have higher retention, it doesn't mean those advanced features cause the retention. Actually, scratch that. Those users might just naturally be power users who engage with everything. Data always requires careful interpretation. Section 6, Better Decisions, Testing, and Iteration. So how do we bring our Spotify onboarding case study to a definitive resolution? Enter A/B testing. This is the ultimate gold standard method for validating our redesign flow. Instead of just guessing if our new design is better, we serve the old version, let's call it version A, to half our new users, and the redesigned version, version B, to the other half. Then we measure the click-through rates, the conversion rates, and the engagement changes. This completely removes guesswork and validates our design choices using real, observed user behavior. And let me tell you, when you get it right, the results are powerful. The funnel drop-off shrinks, the activation rate goes up, users experience the core value of the product faster, and as a direct result, long-term retention improves. But hey, remember that 6-step cycle from earlier? It never really ends. Once you solve one mystery, a brand new opportunity for optimization pops up, and that continuous cycle of learning, observing, and experimenting just begins all over again. Which brings us to the end of our explainer today. And I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative thought. If modern, highly successful products are built entirely through this cycle of evidence-based decisions and continuous learning, what assumptions are you making in your own work right now that a little bit of data and a quick experiment might completely disprove? It's something to think about. Think like a data detective and never stop investigating. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.